So we're very happy that early on Saturday morning, it's like almost 2 o'clock in the morning, Dennis Rowe has agreed to give a perspective of how to mitigate flooding damage on avocados. And Dennis, I've known for many, many years. I can't even remember how long I've known you, Dennis. But Dennis hails originally from South Africa, and he moved to Australia probably close to 20 years ago now. And he is an agricultural consultant with broad experience on growing avocados. And one of the things that Ben Faber ran into Dennis at the World Avocado Congress, and they were talking about flooding. And so we thought that it would be great for Dennis to bring a practical perspective to this meeting. So I'll turn it over to you, Dennis. You're muted. You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, share screen. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. All right, so I've just, I'm going to be quite general. We suffer, in Australia, we suffer floods quite regularly, and it is quite devastating because of the sensitivity of avocados to flooding. But first, just a little bit about me. I've been an avocado research, production, nursery, and intellectual property manager for about, well, it's actually more than 23 years. It's about 28 years now. I moved from South Africa to Australia in 2010 to work for Birdwood Nursery. I now currently live on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, which is about an hour north of Brisbane on the East Coast. I started my business, Subtropical Fruit Farm Consultancy Services, in 2014, and I've been operating it full time since then. I specialize in conventional and organic avocado farming and nurseries, especially clonal production in regions with wet summers and dry winters worldwide. I try not to get involved in the Mediterranean climates, which confuse the hell out of me. Okay, so as we've heard, avocado is extremely sensitive to waterlogging and therefore to flooding. Avocado roots start to die within about 24 hours. A few rootstocks will die within 24 hours of waterlogging due to asphyxiation. We have no rootstocks that can tolerate waterlogging. I apologize for any mistakes because I did this at very short notice. So please forgive me for if there are any mistakes in here. There's a rootstock that comes from South Africa that is being used in Australia and New Zealand quite often in situations where waterlogging may be a problem. And bounty will probably double the time you have before the roots start dying. I don't know if it's available in California. I suspect it might be. Now, following the relief of asphyxiation stress that, as we've heard earlier, Phytophthora pressure is extremely high due to the relatively anaerobic soil conditions. We have no avocado rootstocks that have complete resistance to Phytophthora. We only have sort of various levels of tolerance. So, okay, so therefore, planning for periodic flooding may be partially achieved through orchard design, good soil water infiltration, ability of soil, surface drainage or physical drainage of water off the surface, and what am I trying to say here? Okay. basically we must keep looking for rootstocks that will be able to allow avocados to be grown in wetter conditions. I know this is a pie in the sky, but I think the genes are there somewhere. Now, the first thing that I'd like to suggest is that the planning for periodic flooding may be partially achieved through orchard design. So you should be looking for an orchard topography of at least 4% slope to facilitate easy surface runoff. Select soils for your orchards with fast infiltration rates through the soil profile. Plant on ridges at least 2 feet above the original soil surface so that roots are perched above the waterlogged soil in the event of flooding. A lot of people like to plant on contours. I say avoid planting on contours. Rather orient rows straight down the slope so that water is not impeded by ridges running across the natural runoff path. If your soil is erodible, the erodible soil should be seeded with an aggressive rooting grass cover to bind the soil. Avoid planting orchards in soils with a perched or shallow water table, because this will just rise as the flooding starts to occur. The water table just rises immediately, and your trees drown immediately. And then try and use rootstocks with the highest tolerance to waterlogging. For example, Bounty. I have some clients with orchards on reed seedling. Avoid this rootstock at any cost. It's just a useless seedling rootstock. Oh, sorry. I seem to have repeated myself here. So where soil drainage is inadequate, install a professionally engineered piped or other type of drainage system to rapidly remove excess subterranean water. Avoid planting trees in depressions or where water will naturally flow, because those are the trees that will go first. Install under road culverts or pipes at the lowest crossing points under roads that are running parallel to the contours. I've observed in my experience in Australia, I've seen trees on the upper side of a road dying and trees on the lower side of the road looking okay. And that's because of the compaction on the road damming up water above the road. And you just have this like a buildup of subterranean water above the road. So you should look out for that. Now, if we look at, so that's now before flooding. That's the orchard design. After flooding, once an orchard has been inundated with water, the first thing you must do is turn off the irrigation and your nutrition. Some people forget to do this. It just makes things worse. So inspect your orchards and try to remove any impediments to surface water runoff where it's feasible to do that. So often you might get soil slumping and blocking off water runoff, or trees getting caught up within the runoff area. Try and remove those to try and assist with surface water runoff. And in the absence of a piped drainage system or a professionally designed drainage system, where the soil type allows it and where you can get machinery in, consider pulling mold drains in the interrows after prolonged flooding rain. Now, a mold drain, for those that don't know what that is, it's basically a deep ripper that you can pull behind a bulldozer or a tractor and it has a ball or a torpedo linked to the bottom of the ripper. And as you pull this ripper through the soil, you then get a hole, like a pipe, being formed at the bottom of the ripper tine. And I've seen these things work really well. The water literally gushes out of those, out of the end of that hole, as if it were piped in a pipe. What it also does is it fractures the soil above the mold or the drain, and which allows water to basically flow into the drain pretty well, pretty quickly. So make notes on the observations of the water flow in your orchard while the water is there, and notice where stagnant water stands, and so that you can plan for future flooding. Decide early after the flood whether you are going to staghorn weak trees to improve survival or prune them. In the longer term, decide whether you can significantly improve drainage of the affected trees, for example, by replanting on mounds, improved surface drainage, installation of subsurface drainage. If not, then remove trees from that area and use it for some other purpose. Because when this happens again, you're going to have the same problem. Building better mounds for future tree rows may help in marginal areas as long as they are orientated to allow the water to get away and not dam up. Okay, so we've already discussed Phytophthora root rot. I think I'm just going to go through this very quickly. Several days of cool, cloudy weather will affect the avocado trees to resist Phytophthora because they haven't been able to photosynthesize adequately to build up carbohydrates to fight against the disease and grow new feeder roots. The timing of this is obviously critical, but I think following flooding, you'd forget about the timing and just apply the phosphorus acid. It's critical. The timing is critical because the phosphoric acid will go to different parts of the tree, and it will go to the parts of the tree that are growing most actively at the time. So you want the phosphoric acid to go to the feeder roots to protect them from Phytophthora attacks. So it must be applied when the feeder roots are actively growing. However, after a flood, there is no active feeder root growth for a few weeks. So you've got to try and decide whether the phosphoric acid application will actually get to the roots. Otherwise, you may be wasting your time. Phosphoric acid can be applied either by injection or multiple foliar sprays, but only use the foliar method if you have a healthy tree with a full canopy of leaves. This is needed to allow sufficient uptake of the chemical. It will also be taken up, a few people have shown that it will be taken up through the bark. So if there are insufficient leaves, you should apply a wetting agent. One of the better ones is called Pulse, so that it can stick on the bark and try and get taken up through the bark. In other cases, the trunk injection method is the best. So it's also suggested that you regularly test the phosphoric acid content of your feeder roots. You need to have root levels of about 150 parts per million or more 4 weeks after your applications, and about 90 parts per million going into the summer. So normally they're autumn applications, and often our flooding event takes place in autumn. So it's actually a good time to apply your phosphoric acid. And if you don't have those, you need to re-examine your application process. So just a concluding remark then. So just a tip, just resist the temptation to replant trees in areas which have succumbed to the effects of flooding, as the likelihood of a repeat event is high in the next flood. And just a few trees, we had about 16 inches in 3 days in May last year. This is what the orchards look like now. We're trying to staghorn this orchard to try and get them to grow again. They have started to recover. Some trees have started to recover. It's about 11 months after the event. But this is typically what happened. Small fruit, unmarketable fruit, no leaves, a high incidence of weed growth under the tree because there's no dense foliage to cover the soil. And we have been trying to, the worst trees we've staghorned already. I think we're going to have to come through and just staghorn the whole lot. And that's it. Thanks very much. That's what I've got to say.